Hi, I'm Meg from LUMOplay, and I'm here to show you how to make an interactive ball pit. This is one of the easiest templates, so it's a really good place to start if you're not familiar with how to design your own custom interactive games. The ball pit is designed for the floor, so it's not something that you would use on an interactive wall, but it's ideal for events and for play centers and for any sort of environment where you want to match the colors and the branding of the experience with the environment where your interactive floor is installed. So let's get started. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. LUMOplay is run by a very small team, and your support means a lot to us. If you can share this video or leave a comment below, that will really help us out. The first step to making any kind of custom effect with LUMOplay's Motion Maker templates is to design your own graphics. Now for the ball pit, there's only really two elements that you need to create and prepare in advance. One is the idle image or any of the overlays that you might want to use, whether that's your logo or any other graphic that's going to sit on top of the effect. For this effect, I want to make a text call to action that appears when somebody steps on the interactive floor. It'll vanish as soon as people start playing, but it's just a really good way to encourage people to interact with the experience. So I'm going to make something that just has the title of my game, and I'm using 123rf.com to locate my stock. One of the tricks that I like to use is putting in the words editable text when I do my search on my stock site. That will give me a template that allows me to change the text style and change the font in the file, downloaded as a vector format. So I've downloaded this file as a vector format. I've opened it in Illustrator, and I am just selecting the text and choosing a font that I think will match the look of the experience that I'm trying to create. And then what I'm going to do is just change the words. So I'm going to match the colors a little bit, and I'm going to create something that I think will look really good and inviting on top of my effect. And like I said, it's going to vanish as soon as somebody starts interacting with the effect. Sometimes when you download stock files, it can be a little tricky to figure out where exactly to edit the effect. So in this case, I had to dig around a little bit to figure out where in the file to locate the colors that were being applied to this font. But in the end, I figured it out, and I changed the colors to something that matches the color scheme of the effect that I want to create today. Once I have the graphic figured out and I'm happy with how it looks, I copy and paste it into Photoshop. I create a document that is the size of the projector that I'm going to be using. So it's really important to know the resolution of the display that you're using. And once I've pulled that in, I can make sure that the graphic is the size that I want it to be, and I can save it as a PNG with a transparent background. Any overlay that you create needs to be created this way, where it's the full size of the projector or screen that you're using. So if you're doing a logo, you will make a document that's the full size of the projection or the screen, and then place your logo wherever you want it to put on that screen. When you import these graphics into LUMOplay's Motion Maker, it's super easy because there's not really a lot of fiddling around that you have to do to position things, but it means that you do have to pre-position the graphics that you're making in the location that you want them to be in the total composition before you import them. So now that I've made that graphic, I'm just going to go into the ball pit template by opening LUMOplay, clicking on Motion Maker, scrolling down through the templates till I find the ball pit template and opening that. When I open it, you'll see that I have three different options. I've got the overlay as the background, and then the balls themselves, or the things that are falling. We kind of refer to this template as falling shapes. So even though what I'm making today is a ball pit, you can choose between a lot of different shapes, and I'll show you that a little bit later on in the video. One of the things that you might find is that when you start importing your graphics, you might need to make some changes, and you can go back and open your editing software and adjust things like sizes and colors, and then re-import as you're building. And one of the really nice things about Motion Maker is it'll automatically save a draft of whatever you are working on so that you can come back to it and you can add your graphics as you make changes to them and see a live preview before you publish your game. Another thing that you can do is you can hook your design computer up to a final installation. So that's the projector and the camera, and you can put the preview onto your final installation so you can actually test it out in the final installation before you publish it. What I'm doing to finalize my idle image is I'm just adjusting the timeout, and what that will do is it will make it so that the graphics stays off the screen for a little bit longer, so it disappears when somebody starts interacting with the screen. I don't want it to come back right away after the interaction ends, because I think that that can look a little bit glitchy. And also in this case, because this is an effect that is being designed for a play center, it's something that I want to make sure that kids are able to play and stuff without a graphic just popping up constantly. So I can do a lot of things with this overlay. I can turn the opacity up and down. I can change when it comes back, and I can also adjust whether or not it's animated when it's on the screen. Once I'm happy with my overlay, I just pop open the background, and that will just allow me to upload a new background video or image. I didn't prepare a specific background for this. I just used one that we already had. I wanted to make something that was a little bit darker so that the contrast of the balls is a little bit brighter. And I'm really happy with this, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is and not make any more adjustments to the background. Now, when I go in to adjust my shapes, there's a lot of different stuff that you can do here. I don't actually plan on making a lot of changes. We noticed that the default graphics that we used in the template are actually really pretty, and we haven't actually made an effect for the site that uses this color scheme. So I wanted to just publish something that's very similar to the template and just make a few little changes. But while I'm doing that, I can show you, you can change things like the size, you can change the colors, you can change the material that's being applied to the shapes that are falling. So, going through these materials, some of them look a lot like Christmas baubles, or the default is the plastic, but there's also a flat shader and a tuned shader. So you can create a lot of really interesting effects with just the settings that are applied to the shapes. And then the shapes themselves can be changed. There's a bunch of different primitives to choose from. I personally really like the ball, but there's also blocks. There's things like coins and donuts and hearts. There's snowflakes, but to me they kind of look like ninja stars. And I think, given the flexibility of all of these different shapes, you can create some really interesting effects, especially for seasonal events. Just to quickly sort of demonstrate what it looks like when you change one of the colors in this experience, I'm going to add one more color to the color scheme here. As you can see, I sort of matched the idle image to the background elements, so I don't want to change it too much, but I do want to add one extra color because there is a bit of a yellow highlight to that idle image. So I'm going to add one yellow ball, and hopefully that'll give it a little bit more pop, and you'll be able to see that idle image a little more clearly against the background. I'm also going to adjust the size variance of the balls that are coming down, just so that you can kind of see what it looks like when all the balls are not exactly the same size and shape. There's a lot of other stuff that you can play around with here. The amount per second is the number of balls that fall per second. So if you only want a few things to fall, you can turn that way down. If you want a lot of things to fall, you can turn it way up. The maximum allowed is the maximum allowed shapes on the screen. So you can adjust that if you think that the elements on the screen are getting a little bit too dense. And Yeah, so once I have this where I want it and I've adjusted and added the additional color, I'm pretty happy with this. I think it's going to be really fun to play with. I think it'll be a very unique looking experience in a play center. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it and then move on to publishing it to my account. Once you've created your effect, it will show up in your drafts. You can continue editing it, and when you're done, you can publish it. I'm using LUMOplay Maker, which allows me to publish as many Motion Maker apps as I want to without having to pay an additional fee. If you're using Lumo Playground or LUMOplay Free, you will have a little fee that you have to pay every time you publish this, so it's very important to test your app and make sure that it works the way that you want it to before you publish it, because if you have to go in and make changes after that, there's no way to reopen a draft once it's been published, so you'd have to recreate the app with your changes and pay for it all over again. So that's one of the reasons that we recommend, if you're doing events, just get Playmaker. You can turn it on and off by the month, so if you just need it for 1 month, you don't need to lock in for an entire year. If you're using Playground and you don't want to upgrade to Playmaker to make your app, but you might need to do a couple passes on it, the best plan is to just connect your design computer to the final installation so that you can test it there and make sure it reacts the way you want it to before you publish it. Once your app is published, it will disappear from your drafts and you'll be able to find it in the apps by just searching for it by name. And that's it. You've made an interactive and highly customized experience for your floor in basically 3 easy steps. If you have any questions about how to use the templates, if you have any requests for new templates, if you have any requests for apps that can be added to our general library, please reach out. You can reach us at info@lumoplay.com or through our website, and leave a comment below if you have a moment. That really helps us out. And like and subscribe, share the video with your friends, and hopefully we will be able to work together on a project really soon. I will be back in 1 week on Tuesday with another tutorial video. Thanks. Goodbye.